This is so great. Thank you for coming. You're here. That's great. You all showed up. I appreciate it. And then we showed up, so you got to see the things that you paid to see. That's great. You don't always get to see the things that you paid to see. Ever been to the goddamn zoo? Those guys are never where they're supposed to be. Every time I go to the zoo, I'm like, hey, where's the jaguar? And the zoo guy is like, oh, he must be in the inside part. The inside part? Tell him we're here. I love doing stand-up for crowds because this right here, this reminds me of assembly in grade school. And assembly was the only part of school I ever liked. And once you leave school, you don't get to have assembly. This is the closest we get in adult life to assembly. Because look at you all, you're just sitting there in chairs, looking at a guy with absolutely no expertise, who's gonna talk for a while. Although this is different than assembly, because like you bought tickets, you knew this was coming. Assembly, you never knew was coming when you were a kid. You just showed up at 8 a.m. and they were like, put down your stuff. Go to the gym. Oh my God, I guess they're finally gonna kill us all, all right. This is younger than I thought it would be, but we are pretty big assholes. You get to the gym and the whole school is sitting on the floor. You're like, what are we about to graduate from Tuesday? My principal would always come out to kick things off. She'd be like, children, rather than continue to teach you how to read, we have cleared the entire day for this random guy. I used to smoke crack. As you 7- and 8-year-olds probably know, freebasing is the greatest orgasm known to man. But I'm here to tell you there's hope. I've been sober now 2 weeks. Well, weekdays, not weekends. Weekends, that's Nunzio's time. I was once in assembly listening to a guy talk about smoking crack. My social studies teacher yelled at me, goes, sit up straight, show some respect. I was like, he's smoking cocaine. Sit up straight, he's standing on a 45-degree angle, or as junkies call it, first position. I always got yelled at assembly. That's right, there was always like assembly, and then there was like that second assembly to yell at you for how you behaved at the first assembly. Be like, get in here, sit down, sit down, sit down. I want to talk about what happened yesterday. You're like 8 years old, you're like, what's yesterday? We invite a woman here with homemade puppets to teach you about bullying through skits. And you laugh at this woman? We noticed you had all been bullying each other and making fun of everything constantly. So we invite a woman with straight gray hair in a denim dress with a wrist cast and homemade puppets that all have the same voice to teach you about bullying through skits. And you ha, laugh it up. What was so funny about that woman? I want to know. What was so funny about when she couldn't fit the box of puppets back into the trunk of her Dodge Neon? What was so hilarious that you all ran to the windows? Well, you all missed a valuable lesson on the danger of cliques. What's a clique? It's when a group of people hang out together. Oh, you mean like having friends? No. Because these people make fun of other people. Oh, you mean like having friends? One thing you do in rehab, you sit down with your counselor and you go through your phone, and a lot of times they'll have you delete and block any drug dealers or any bad influences, numbers that you have. In some cases, you reach out to the people first and you tell them, hey, I'm gonna delete and block you so that they don't try to track you down later. It's called breaking up with your dealer. So I did this one day. I sat down with my counselor, I go through my phone, I went to my main dealer, Arvin, first, and I texted him and I said, hey, I'm deleting and blocking you. I'm never gonna buy drugs from you again. I'm sober now. Then I didn't know how to end the text, so I go, but thank you for your many years of inspired professionalism and the many nights that became days. I send the text. Before I can delete and block him, Arvin texts me back. He goes, "Hey, I'm so proud of you for getting sober." Then he writes, "You know, I only bought drugs to sell to you because I was worried about you and I didn't want you to get worse stuff off the street." I know, and I'm breaking up with this guy? So I can't delete him now. I text him back. I go, "You sweet man." I say, "You only bought drugs to sell to me?" He says, "Yeah." I say, "Did you sell drugs to other people?" He says, "No." Then I say, "Hey, this is a weird time to ask, but are you a drug dealer?" He goes, "No, I'm a painter. We talked about this." Boston, to this day, I have no idea how I know this person. So I text him back and I say, "How did it come to be that you sell me drugs?" And he wrote back, "I don't know. You just kept asking." I like that story because there are many tales of drug dealers who have turned innocent people into drug addicts. I might be the first drug addict to turn an innocent man into a drug dealer, and that is the promise of death. Well, I apologize for beginning the show on such a dark note, but I didn't want to start way too upbeat, you know? I've had a weird couple years. You've had a weird couple years. I didn't want to come out all phony, you know? Be like, "Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, hey Boston, it's time to laugh. Raise up your smiles, lower those masks. You know what I mean. We all quarantined. We all went to rehab and we all got divorced, and now our reputation is different. No one knows what to think. Hey, yeah. All the kids like Bo Burnham more because he's currently less problematic. Likability is a jail. So we can't start now. Thanks, I wrote that song. Before I begin, young man in the third row up there, what's your name? Henry? Okay, Henry, how old are we? 11? Okay. Haha, wonderful. You won't at all be distracting me throughout the entire performance. Henry, oh man. Henry, I don't mean this in a like, do you know who I am kind of way, but like, do you know like who I am, or did like a babysitter cancel and suddenly you were like in a van? You know who I am? Okay, have you seen me do stand-up before? Okay, all right, well I appreciate you coming. So the things that I talk about tonight that I did recently. I never say this, Henry. I don't say this explicitly, but don't. All right? Don't. You're in the 6th grade? 5th? Well, Henry, if you've seen me do stand-up before. I have kind of a different vibe now. When I was a younger man, I'd come out on stage and be like, hey, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And I wonder what caused that. Well, those days are over. That's okay. That's nice. Okay. Here's what happened. If anyone here has ever been to rehab, you probably know this, but you are not allowed to bring drugs in with you. I don't know if you all recall my first errand of the evening before my intervention, but I leave that intervention for rehab. I have a lot of narcotics on me. So back then, I was addicted to cocaine, Adderall, Xanax, Klonopin, and Percocet, called a Providence Special. Providence, Rhode Island, for those of you around the world, is a city near here. And it's a big joke to all of us. Very silly place. I leave for rehab. I have on my person a full baggie of 30 milligram Adderall, a full baggie of Xanax, 3 grams of cocaine, and $2,000 in cash. I had other plans that weekend. So I get to rehab at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I walk up to the intake desk. And at the intake desk, the woman says, "Do you have any drugs on you?" And I said, "No, I do not. May I please go to the bathroom?" 2 guys grab me, they take my winter coat off me, they start going through the pockets, they go through the inside zipper pocket of my winter coat. I was like, how did they find out about the inside zipper pocket? That pocket has eluded everyone in my life. They reach in there, they pull out all these pills and all this cash and 2 grams of coke. Oh, remember I said I had 3 grams? Well, I did a bunch in the car, and I did a bunch at a gas station in the bathroom off of one of those koala baby changing stations. What? That's what those are for. You think you're supposed to put a human baby on that mousetrap of a device? They have gang signs carved into them. Those are for snorting coke off of. When you're a cokehead, you see the world in terms of surfaces. So they reach in, they pull out all these pills and all this cocaine and all this cash, and they stare at me. And I said, "Oh, those old winter coats." You know that phenomenon, when you're going through your goose down jackets, and you're like, 5 grand and an 8 ball. From the night we went caroling. Those old winter coats. I was nervous all the time, but I had a good family. I have wonderful parents. A lot of guys my age, I'll hear them say this. They go, every day I think I'm becoming more like my dad. I think I'm becoming more like my mom. Because I was watching that show, Access Hollywood. And one of the reporters said, up next, we have an exclusive interview with Sandra Bullock's former husband, Jesse James. And out loud, I went, this ought to be good. That's pure mom. My parents are both lawyers. They are both lawyers. And sometimes they would be like lawyers with us when we were kids. I remember one time I was in bed, and my dad came in and he said, "Good night, John. Did you brush your teeth?" And I said, "Yes. But here's the thing. I hadn't." But who cares? I didn't have like a job interview or anything. So my dad comes back in a couple minutes holding my toothbrush. He says, "John, is this your toothbrush?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "So we agree that this is your toothbrush." Then he said, "John, this toothbrush is bone dry." Like he looked down and he said, "Bone dry." He said, "You lied to me." I said, "Dad, I did not lie. I said that I brushed my teeth. I never specified that I brushed my teeth tonight. And if the court reporter reads back my remarks, you will see that I did not perjure myself." mom's also a lawyer. She was a different kind of lawyer with us when we were kids. My mom was more like Nancy Grace. She would just make wild accusations all day long and wait for something to stick. My mom would blame me for things that happened on the news. That is true. I woke up one morning when I was a kid and my mom was standing over my bed and she said, I just heard that Princess Diana and her lover, Dodi Al-Fayed, have been killed in Paris, like I had something to do with it. I was like, Mom, I have been here all night. You can feel the TV, it's warm. Luckily, I had a good alibi since I was in Wisconsin and 12. My brothers and sisters and I had this babysitter named Veronica when we were kids, and I was in love with her. I was in love with Veronica. She would babysit us on Saturday nights. And in my head, when I was a little kid, I thought that Veronica was like 25, 30 years old. I was just talking to my mom the other week. I found out that when I was 10, Veronica was 13. So why was she in charge? All she could do was dial the telephone a little better than I could. 13 when I'm 10, that's just like hiring a slightly bigger child. That would be like if you're going out of town for the week and you paid a horse to watch your dog. Like, all right, here is the number where we'll be, and here's where we keep the dog food, and you're a horse. Why do people do that? People always shush animals. They go, hey, shh, 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 shh. They've never spoken. I always wanted to live in New York when I was a kid. I'm so excited that I get to live in New York. I saw New York City in a movie when I was a kid. It was called Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. It is a sequel. Yeah, how about that movie? It was a sequel to the movie Home Alone. I remember in that movie, the kid in Home Alone 2, he gets into a stretch limousine on 5th Avenue with a large cheese pizza, and I thought, this is the height of luxury! Now I live in New York, and I'm psyched, but that is a stupid movie title. Lost in New York, the streets are numbered. How'd you get lost in New York? I know it's kind of stupid to complain about a movie that came out 17 years ago, but I wasn't a comedian back then. So I have to do it now. I wish I'd been a Def Jam comic when that movie came out. I would have torn it to pieces. Be like, you see this shit? You see this Home Alone 2 Lost in New York shit? It's a grant system, motherfucker. Where you at? 24th and 5th? Where you want to go? 35th and 6th? 11 up and 1 over, you simple bitch. That'd be my big joke. That'd be the closing. If I was a Def Jam comic when that movie came out. But alas, I was not. I really do. I was psyched to do it in New York. I'm really happy to live here and was glad that we could do it in New York City. And I'm not sure how you all got here tonight, but I did want to say this. I've never been killed by hitmen, so I don't know what it's like in the moments just before you're killed by hitmen. But I bet it's not unlike when you're on the subway and you realize that a mariachi band is about to start playing. Just that brief moment where you're reading and you're like, oh, a guitar player. Oh, another guitar player. No, an accordion player. Oh, no. This is the loudest thing in the world. I was really excited. A lot of people showed up. They told me that it was a big theater, and I thought that no one would come, so thank you for coming. I wanted to, take ads out in the paper, or, be, do something to a tot so I get in the New York Post or something. The New York Post is my favorite newspaper. I think it's great. I read it every day. I like reading the New York Post because reading the New York Post is like talking to someone who heard the news, and now they're trying to give you the gist. Get the same amount of information if you grab someone on the street and you were like, what happened today? They were like, it's a perv in Queens. You'd be like, all right, thank you. Or rather, it's like someone read a better newspaper and now they're trying to text you everything they can remember. Doesn't have to be right, just has to be short. I really do love the Post.
I read it a lot, and there's a hierarchy in the New York Post. Different people that they like and different people that they don't like. And if you pay attention, you can start to identify some of the New York Post rankings that they have. The number one thing that you can be in the eyes of the New York Post is an angel. An angel is a child who has died. That is the best thing that you can be in the eyes of the New York Post. The less amount of time you live, the better in the eyes of the Post. After that, under an angel is a hero. A hero is any man who does his job. You'll a lot of times see headlines that are like, hero tutor teaches after school, and you're like, yeah. Down towards the bottom of the spectrum, there are pervs. Pervs touch tots. Tots are angels who haven't died yet. There are no children in the eyes of the New York Post. You're either a tot or you're dead and you're an angel. I did leave one out, sorry. Above perv is a bozo. A bozo is any man who cheats on his wife. That guy's a bozo. I remember seeing a headline when Tiger Woods cheated on his wife, and it says, Tiger says he's sorry, but Elin says, beat it, bozo. No, she did not. She is from another country. And even if she was from this country, no one has said bozo in 1,000 years. Who was your source on that, New York Post? Some tiny old lady that chain smokes all day long? They met her in a parking garage and they were like, Madge, give us the scoop. What did Elin say to Tiger? She told him to beat it, bozo. How are you? Thank you, that's very nice of you, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, that's so nice of you. I hope you're having a good week. Thank you for being here. I'm doing well myself. In a couple days, I'm going to turn 29 years old, and I'm very excited about that. I was hoping by now that I would look older, but it didn't happen. I don't look older, I just look worse, I think. Honestly, when I'm walking down the street, no one's ever like, hey, look at that man. I think they're just like, whoa, that tall child looks terrible. Get some rest, tall child. You can't keep burning the candle at both ends. You ever seen on America's Most Wanted when they age a photo of someone? Just take my kindergarten photo and yellow the teeth and put bags under the eyes and be like, this is what he would look like now. I was a very nervous kid. I was anxious all the time when I was younger. But what's nice is that some of the things I was anxious about don't bother me at all anymore. Like, I always thought that quicksand was going to be a much bigger problem than it turned out to be. Because if you watch cartoons, quicksand is like the third biggest thing you have to worry about in adult life. Behind real sticks of dynamite and giant anvils falling on you from the sky. I used to sit around and think about what to do about quicksand. I never thought about how to handle real problems in adult life. I was never like, oh, what's it going to be like when relatives ask to borrow money? Now I've gotten older, not only have I never stepped in quicksand, I've never even heard about it. No one's ever been like, hey, if you're coming to visit, take I-90, because I-95 has a little quicksand in the middle. Looks like regular sand, but then you're going to start to sink into it.
Well, we don't have any kids now, and it's great. We have a dog, though. We have a 4-year-old French bulldog. Her name is Petunia. The idea of people applauding for that little monster. I would never tell her that you applauded. It would go right to her ego, that little monster who just rubs her vulva on the carpet while staring at me in the eyes. I know her vulva itches and she needs to rub it, but the thumping of the back paws, it's upsetting. I'm just kidding. I love Petunia very much. She's one of my most favorite people I've ever met in my life. Petunia likes to be very social, but she can't walk very far because she has a flat face, so she can't breathe by design. But she wants to go out and meet people, but we can't walk her for that long. And anyway, this is a long-winded way of saying that we bought a stroller for our dog. My wife and I walk around New York City pushing Petunia the French bulldog in a stroller. And it's a big stroller, and it has a big black hood. and people lean in to see the baby. And instead they see a gargoyle breathing like Chris Christie. Her paws are sweating. We're like, he's sick. But religion came up with Petunia recently. My wife and I were talking about cute things that Petunia could be involved in. And I said, oh, what if we got like a biblical painting done with Petunia in it? And my wife was like, oh, that would be so cute. We should do like the Last Supper. And I was like, oh my God, that'd be so cute. We should do all different French bulldogs as the different apostles. And my wife was like, oh, and we should have Petunia in the middle where Jesus is in front of the turkey. And I was like, wait, what did you just say? Did you say the turkey? And my wife said, yeah, yeah, why? And I said, oh. I said, would you just answer me one question? Do you think that in Da Vinci's The Last Supper, that Jesus of Nazareth is sitting in front of a turkey? And my wife said, yes, I do. And I said, thank you for your honesty. Would you just one more follow-up question? So then, what do you think they're celebrating? What do you think those guys are celebrating? And she was like, okay, I get it. I don't get this shit because I wasn't raised Catholic and I'm fucking glad I wasn't because it's a fucked up organization. I said, oh, no. We all know that. But what do you think those guys are celebrating? And my wife looked at the floor. And then she looked at me and said, Thanksgiving. My family went to church every Sunday when I was a kid. My wife cannot believe this. She's like, you went every Sunday? I'm like, yes. She's like, what if you were out of town? I was like, they have them out of town. I don't know if you grew up going to church and now you don't, but it can be a weird existence because I like to make fun of it all day long. But then if someone like Bill Maher is like, who would believe in a man up in the sky? I'm like, my mommy, so shut the fuck up. Stop calling my mommy dumb. Thank you for clapping in my political gazebo material. I'm very brave. I've never really cared about politics. Never talked about it much. But then, last November, the strangest thing happened. Now, I don't know if you've been following the news, but I've been keeping my ears open, and it seems like everyone, everywhere, is super mad about everything, all the time. I try to stay a little optimistic, even though I will admit, things are getting pretty sticky. Here's how I try to look at it. This is just me. This guy being the president. It's like there's a horse loose in a hospital. It's like there's a horse loose in a hospital. I think eventually everything's gonna be okay, but I have no idea what's gonna happen next. And neither do any of you, and neither do your parents, because there's a horse loose in the hospital. It's never happened before. No one knows what the horse is gonna do next, least of all the horse. He's never been in a hospital before. He's as confused as you are. There's no experts. They try to find experts on the news. They're like, we're joined now by a man that once saw a bird in the airport. It's like, get out of here with that shit. We've all seen a bird in the airport. This is a horse loose in a hospital. When a horse is loose in a hospital, you gotta stay updated. So all day long you walk around, oh, what'd the horse do, what'd the horse do? The updates, they're not always bad. Sometimes they're just odd. used to be elevator. I didn't know he knew how to do that. The creepiest days are when you don't hear from the horse at all. Sometimes, if you make fun of the horse, people will get upset. These are the people that open the door for the horse. And I don't judge anyone, but sometimes I ask people, I go, hey, how come you open the door for the horse? They go, well, the hospital was inefficient. Sometimes they go, you know, if you're so mad at the horse, how come you weren't mad when the last guy did this 3.5 years ago? You're beating up on the horse for that, when the last guy essentially did the same thing 5 years ago. It's like, first off, get out of here with your facts, okay? You're like the kid at the sleepover who after midnight is like, it's tomorrow now. Get the fuck out of here with your technicalities. Just because you're accurate does not mean you're interesting. That was fun when we watched Beetlejuice tonight. Don't you mean last night? It's after midnight. Why don't you get your sleeping bag and get out of my house? Take your EpiPen. Take your goddamn EpiPen and get out of my house. But when people say, how come you were never mad at the last guy? I say, because I wasn't paying attention. I used to pay less attention before it was a horse. Also, I thought the last guy was pretty smart, and he seemed good at his job. And I'm lazy by nature. I'm lazy by nature, too, so I don't check up on people when they seem okay at their job. You may think that's an ignorant answer, but it's not. It's a great answer. If you left your baby with your mother tonight, you're not going to race home and check the nanny cam. But if you leave your baby with Gary Busey... And now there's Nazis again. When I was a kid, Nazis was just an analogy you would use to decimate your child during an argument at the dinner table. There's new Nazis. I don't care for these new Nazis, and you may quote me on that. These new Nazis. Oh, Jews are the worst, and Jews ruin everything, and Jews try to take over your life. It's like, you know what, motherfucker? My wife is Jewish. I know all that. How do you know all that? My dad is so weird. I'd love to meet him someday. You know, my friend was telling me that his dad used to beat him with a belt. And that's just the setup to my story, so forget about that poor son of a bitch. Anyway, so he was talking, and I was waiting for him to be done so that I could talk, you know. So he talked. Oh, it's my turn next. And I said, my dad never hit us. My dad is a lawyer, and he was a debate team champion. So he would pick us apart psychologically. One time I was at the dinner table when I was like 6, because I had to be. My dad goes, how was school today? I said, it was good, but someone pushed Tyler off the seesaw. And where were you? I was over on the bench. And what did you do? Nothing, I was over on the bench. But you saw what happened? Yeah, because I was over on the bench. So you saw what happened and you did nothing? Yeah, because I was sitting over on the bench. Let me ask you this. In Nazi Germany, when people saw what the Nazis were doing and they did nothing, were those good people? Oh no, those are bad people. You gotta stop the Nazis. But you saw what they were doing to Tyler and you did nothing because I was over on the bench. And then my dad said, just explain to me this. How are you better than a Nazi? And then my mom said, I made a salad with craisins. And the conversation ended. My dad's a very weird and formal guy. A lot of people ask me if he gave me a sex talk. Yes, I think. I was like 12 years old, and my dad walked up to me and he said, hello. Hello, I'm Chip Mulaney, I'm your father. And then he said the following. You know, Leonard Bernstein was one of the great composers and conductors of the 20th century. But sometimes he would be gay. And according to a biography I read of him, when he was holding back the gay did some of his best work. Now, we don't have time to unpack all of that. And I don't know if he was discouraging me from being gay or encouraging me to be a classical composer, but that is how he thought to phrase it to a 12-year-old boy. How would that ever work? Like years later, I'd be in college about to go down on some rockin' twink, and I'd be like, wait a second, what would Leonard Bernstein do? I've never talked to my dad about that, but I figured I would tell all of you. John Bryan, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to see me at Radio City Music Hall. I love to play venues where if the guy that built the venue could see me on the stage, he would be a little bit bummed about it. Look at this. This is so much nicer than what I'm about to do. It's really tragic. What a historic and beautiful and deeply haunted building this is. I keep walking through cold spots being like, I wonder who that used to be. I've never seen a ghost, by the way. I asked my mom if she'd ever seen a ghost. That's where we're at conversation-wise in our relationship as a mother and son. Because I'm 35 and I don't have any children to talk about. And she doesn't understand my career. So I was home for Christmas and we were just eating Triscuits in silence. And I was staring at the floor and I was like, well, here goes nothing. You ever seen a ghost? And my mom said, yes. Which is the best answer. She said, I never told you this before, but our house when you were growing up was haunted. I said, say more right now. She said, outside you and your brother's room, I used to see the ghost of a little girl in a Victorian nightgown, and then she would walk down the hallway, and then she would evaporate. And then my dad said, let's change the subject. And I think he was just doing that dad thing of like, this is a weird topic, and I want to talk about a book I read about World War II, but the way it came off was that he definitely killed that little girl. Let's change the subject. Why are we even talking about Penelope, or whatever her name was? I didn't kill her. Whoever did kill her only did it to protect her from this world. None of us really know our fathers. Anyway. I worked hard in rehab. I did what my counselors told me. When I first got there, my counselor asked me to write an autobiography of my substance use and abuse. I said, what do you mean? He goes, write all the big life points where you use drugs and alcohol. I said, you mean recently or starting at age 6? He said, did you start drinking when you were 6? I said, yes. And then he gave me more paper. I tried alcohol when I was 6. I don't mean I was at a bar having a Manhattan or something. We were allowed to try beer and wine. My dad told us when we were kids, he said, we have a European approach towards alcohol in this house. That was the only thing we had a European approach towards. Everything else we had a very Midwestern approach. Including Europe. We're like, we're not going to that place. By the time I was 13, I got drunk every weekend. My friends and I would go out on the streets of Chicago, on Lincoln Avenue, and we'd stand in front of liquor stores and try to get adults to go in and buy liquor for us. This was always a very dramatic process. Because we were 13, we looked 9. We'd be sitting out there like little Charles Dickens urchins, just like, sir, please, sir, please. They'd sometimes try to give me money. I go, no, I give you money. And you buy me beer in this store, the one where the cashier is watching this entire exchange through the window. In 8th grade once, I said to my friends, I go, we should only ask couples on dates, because the guy will want to buy beer for us to look cool in front of the girl. I did not understand adult first date dynamics. As if when he's dropping her off, she'd be like, you know, I wasn't sure about you in the beginning of the night, but
when I saw you buy those two 24-packs of Natty Light using quarters and dimes, and that one bottle of Boone's Farm for that really specific child, I was like, this guy might be a keeper. I started doing drugs when I was 14 with my two best friends, John and John. They're not me, they're other people. They were both named John. There was John O'Brien, John McNulty, and then me. My name is John Mulaney. If you didn't know that, you were probably in rehab with me. One time when we were 16, me, John, and John, we were in a parking lot at night, and we were smoking a joint. We were getting high, and then a police car pulled in out of nowhere, like, ah, oh, ah, and we went, shit. And we threw the joint we had down a sewer, and we got rid of all of our weed. But they still called us over and made us put our hands on the patrol car. They're like, line up and put your hands on the hood. So the three of us line up, and we put our hands on the patrol car. The police officer walks up to John O'Brien first, and he starts to give him a pat down. And he goes, what's your name? He goes, John. Then he goes to John McNulty. Starts to give him a pat down. He goes, what's your name? He goes, John. Then he got to me. Before he gave me a pat down, he leaned in and whispered in my ear, your name better fucking not be John. They call me Baby J out on these streets. I was in rehab for 2 months, from December 18th to February 20th. I was there January 6th during the insurrection. Wouldn't have happened on my watch. Because I would have made sure. It didn't. Was there ever an insurrection before I went to rehab? No. Has there been one since I got out? Absolutely not. They wouldn't dare. They know Baby J is back on the streets. The whole time I was in rehab, it was very locked down for COVID, so we never got to leave the building. But I've heard at some rehabs, they take you on field trips. Like the one I was at, I guess in better times, you got to go to a farm and meet a horse. They do it a lot, it's called equine therapy. That sounds really nice, but how bad do you feel for that horse? It's born being like, one day I'm gonna win the Kentucky Derby. And its whole life is just junkies being like, okay, all right. Petting your strong leg gives me confidence. If I can lift your hoof, it means I'm ready to have my own apartment. When I first got to rehab, one of my biggest fears was that everyone was going to recognize me. Gradually, a new fear took over. I'm not like exaggerating to be funny. Fucking no one. No one knew who I was, and it was driving me bananas. Please don't repeat this. It was in the newspaper that I was in rehab, and I left it out. I was like, hey, oh my God, the paper's here. Get in here, you addicts. Oh my God. That's all. I wonder what's inside. before I realized that no one knew who I was, I went to this welcome group. So, like, I went from the detox ward up to the men's ward where I was going to live for a couple months. When I got there, they had this welcome group. And I'm walking in, and before I walked into the group, I said to myself, I was like, be modest. So I go in, and I sit down, and I go, hi, I'm John M. And they're all staring at me like, why are you holding for applause? And this one guy, Lenny, who I later became really good friends with, he looks at me and he goes, what do you do for a living? And all the other guys go, yeah, what do you do for a living? And I was like, and I go, I'm a stand-up comedian? And Lenny goes, you make a living that way? I'm like, yeah, ask your daughter. Or your son if he's not an athlete. I got in trouble my second week in rehab because I ordered Outback Steakhouse using Postmates. There were two things in this Pennsylvania town where I went to rehab. There was an Outback and there was a rehab. But when I ordered the Outback, I somehow thought the delivery guy wouldn't know what the rehab was. So I gave him the street address of the rehab as if it was my home. And then in the special instructions, I wrote, don't stop at the big building. Drive up the hill to the brick dorm, and you'll see a 38-year-old man outside in a robe who's so excited. So the food arrives, but it gets confiscated by the RS on duty, and he calls me into his office, and he goes, this is fucked up. This is serious. I go, it's just Outback. He goes, what if it's an Outback dry run? I go, what's an Outback dry run? He goes, well, this time you order Outback and it's just food and we laugh it off and we let it through. But what if you left a really big tip? So that next time you order, you go, hey, remember me? I left you a really big tip. I'll give you an even bigger tip if you get me some drugs. I said, oh my God, that is a fantastic idea. I decided to do something about all this anxiety recently. I decided I was going to try and get a Xanax prescription. I don't know if anyone here has ever tried Xanax, but it's fantastic. Very muted claps for Xanax. You don't really get woos, it's more like, yeah. I didn't know how to get a Xanax prescription, though. Drugs like that are tricky sometimes. But I talked to a friend of mine, and he said, hey, I did this. He said that he had a regular doctor's appointment, and at the end of it, he said to his doctor, hey, doctor, sometimes I get nervous on airplanes. And the doctor just wrote him a Xanax prescription. And I was like, yeah, that's the type of lowbrow shit I'm looking for. I'll take your advice, friend I've never listened to before. So I go to a clinic, and I go in, and I'm just going to go in for, a regular type of checkup, and at the end, I'll ask about Xanax. So I get to the front desk, and they have a why are you here sheet. And I want to pick something that will get me in and out really quickly. And I look down, and I see frequent urination. And I was like, perfect. That'll be a super quick visit, I'll just be like, hey, sometimes I pee a lot. And the doctor will be like, me too, crazy, right? And I'll be like, I get nervous on airplanes. So I checked off frequent urination, and I sat down in the waiting area, and I waited for 3 hours. I finally go back to the observation room, and in the observation room, there is a male nurse standing there, and he has a Batman sticker on his stethoscope, a Batman necklace, and a Batman watch. He was kind of moving around the whole time, he was just like, all right, I am too blessed to be stressed. Let's do it. What are you allergic to besides work? And then he'd take something and he'd throw it over his shoulder and be like, beats working. Like, all of his jokes were very anti-work, which is not always what you want from a healthcare professional. The doctor comes in the room, and the doctor looks at my chart, and he says, oh, you're here for frequent urination. How many times a day are you urinating? And I tried to think of a number that would warrant a doctor visit. So I said 11. That was too many times to say. The doctor looks at me and says, you're peeing 11 times a day. Then you may have something with your prostate. So, what we need to do, some of you are ahead of me. So I don't know exactly how he phrased it, but the gist of it was, hey, if this visit is to continue, I'm going to stick part of my hand up your ass. And I didn't know what to say. Because I couldn't be like, no, that's okay. I was lying. It was a lie. To get drugs. You know, like a crime. So what I did was, I pulled down my pants, and I walked over to the observation table, and I put my hands down on the observation table like this. And by the way, part of me was like, whatever, you know? You know those days when you're like, this might as well happen? Adult life is already so goddamn weird. So I'm bent over like this on the table, and the doctor comes up behind me and goes, no, not on your hands, on your elbows, and he knocks me down like that. And this is so much worse than this. I don't know why. I think it's that this has like a little remaining dignity to it, you know what I mean? This is sort of like, oh, stick it in, I am an American. This is like you're leaning over the edge of a cruise ship, and you're like, we are approaching Martinique. He knocked me down to my elbows. And then, he stuck his hand in. And you know how sometimes you're like, I bet I know what most things feel like, you know? You just think you'll know. I did not know what this was gonna feel like. And this was the actual sound I made. I went, oh! But I didn't say it. Like it came from my vocal cords, but it was totally involuntary. It was as if a ghost had been trapped in my belly and finally flew out towards the light. And then, when he pulled his hand out, we've gotten to know each other pretty well. So I will phrase this as delicately as I can. I did not realize that when the doctor pulls his hand out, it feels like you're shitting because the only thing that's ever come out of your butt before has been shit. So, he pulls his hand out, and I thought that I was shitting into his hand. So I yelled, I'm sorry! This is a very routine procedure, by the way, for most doctors. And so far he's had to deal with, oh, and I'm sorry. And he didn't even let me off the hook, you know? He wasn't like, don't worry, you didn't shit into my hand. He just threw his glove away and was like, And I was about to ask about Xanax, but then he said, all right, your prostate's fine, but we still need to do a blood test. So I pulled up my pants and shuffled away, feeling different. And he yells out into the hall, he goes, hey, we're doing a blood test, get in here. And Batman dances back in, and he's like, all right, we're gonna do a blood test. You look different, let's do it. The doctor left the room, so I'm alone with Batman. I just need this blood test to be over, okay? But first I had to tell Batman something. I said, Batman, look, I'm one of those people who, when you take blood from me, sometimes I can faint. And I was in the waiting area for 3 hours, and I haven't eaten all day, and I'm really worried I'm gonna faint. And Batman said to me, and I'll never forget it, you're not gonna faint. So, I stick my arm out, Batman puts the needle in, I immediately collapse on the ground. I wake up and I am covered in sweat lying on the observation table. I wake up, I open my eyes and I see Batman's face, he's looking at me and he goes, you gotta go! And I said, can I please talk to the doctor though first? Because sometimes I get nervous on airplanes. And Batman said, the doctor's gone! So I got you've been nervous your entire life, you should ask your doctor about Xanax. Because if you lie to him, he will stick his finger in your ass. And if you do suffer from frequent urination, keep it to yourself. I went to that clinic 2 years later for a different checkup, and as I was leaving, who did I run into but Batman? And he smiled at me, and he was wearing reading glasses to show that time had passed. Thanks very much for listening to me. My name's John Mulaney. You were really fun. Thank you. I'm feeling good tonight, though. I got a massage recently. Went to a spa to get a massage. I went into the room to get the massage, and the woman there told me to undress to my comfort level. Those were her words. She said, I'm going to leave the room. You undress to your comfort level. So I put on a sweater and a pair of corduroy pants, and I felt safe. I'm trying to, in general, take better care of myself. I'm trying to stop smoking. I've smoked since I was 13 years old. I started when I was 13 years old because I stole 2 cigarettes from my older sister, and I hid them in a shoebox under my bed with a copy of Cosmopolitan magazine. One day, my mom cleaned under my bed, and she found the shoebox. I came home from school, and my mom was standing there holding it, and she said, "Hey, mister, I found your treasure." And I never liked the way she phrased that, because that made me sound like the world's lamest pirate, like a guy whose treasure chest is 2 cigarettes and a woman's magazine. And my dad came home from work, and my mom told my dad that she'd cleaned under my bed and found a shoebox with 2 cigarettes and a Cosmopolitan, which prompted my dad to ask, how does John know how to make a Cosmopolitan? I'm trying to eat better. I was out to lunch with a friend, and I got a chicken sandwich. And the waitress said to me, "Oh, you're getting a chicken sandwich. Well, that comes with a choice of either salad or fries." Those were the choices, salad or fries, the 2 most different foods in the universe. That's like saying, what kind of day do you want to have? Do you want to be active and go to the bathroom or stuff, or do you want to lay on the floor moaning? Oh, you're getting a chicken sandwich? Well, with that, you can either go for a jog or smoke crack cocaine. Oh, well, if I got a plate of crack for the table, would you have some? You'd have crack if I got a plate of crack? Yeah, okay, we'll take an order of crack. Sometimes, when people order fries, they act like it's a little adventure. They'll be like, should we get a plate of fries for the table? Should we do it? Should we share some fries? They gotta make sure that everyone's on board with it. It's like, if I get fries, you'll have a couple, right? If I get fries for the table, I know you'll have fries if I get fries. Should we do it? Yeah, let's be bad. Come on, let's do it. All right, we're gonna take a plate of fries. It's like a group of couples agreeing to do ecstasy together. And it's weird, I miss it sometimes because drinking can kind of calm your nerves, and I live in New York now, and sometimes you see things that can make you anxious. You'll see troubling things out on the street. I was coming into my apartment building one night, and I saw in front of my building a wheelchair knocked over on its side with no one in it. That's a bad thing to see. Something happened there. You hope it was a miracle. But probably not. Probably something worse. And I don't like arguments. Some people like to argue, they think it's like an art. I don't like it. I think it's because really ordinary arguments can get really dramatic really quickly. Like I was talking to a friend recently, and I told him that I didn't think I believed in the death penalty, and my friend said to me, "Oh, so you're telling me that if you saw Hitler walking down the street, you wouldn't kill him?" That wasn't what I was telling you. But all right. Let's talk about this entirely new topic. What would I do if I saw Adolf Hitler just walking down the street? Well, first off, I wanted to know, what did my friend mean? Did he mean that I see a guy in like the military outfit with the little mustache? Because then I would assume that that's someone dressed as Hitler. I'm not gonna kill that guy. I'm not gonna kill an actor and ruin Indiana Jones 5 just because I don't understand costumes. Or does he mean that I'm walking down the street and I see like an old man who I think might be Hitler based on my memory of what Hitler looks like, I'm not gonna kill that guy either, because I am often wrong. I'd murder him, and then people would run up and be like, whoa, you just killed an old man. And I'd be like, he looked like Hitler. And they're like, yeah, a little. I have a lot of strange interactions on the street. Years ago, I was walking down the street, and a homeless guy came up to me, and he walked up to me, and he pushed me like that. He pushed me in the chest. And then he said, these things in this order. He pushed me, and he said, excuse me, I am homeless, I am gay, I have AIDS, I'm new in town. You're gonna close with new in town? That is not the most dramatic thing that you just said. As they say in the movie Jerry Maguire, you had me at AIDS. Here's how I would have ordered those things. I would have said, excuse me, I'm new in town, and it gets worse. Didn't that guy practice his, pitch it all in the mirror that morning? And just figure out what he was gonna say? You know, just in the morning, just be like, all right, what am I gonna do today? What am I gonna do? I walk up and say hello. No, that's too subtle. I'm gonna push it. I'm not gonna say, I'm new in town. No, hold back. Save it. Build to that. I'm not gonna walk up to him, I'm gonna push him. Go, I have AIDS. No, that's too strong. All right. I'll walk up to him. I'll push him. I will start with the fact that I am homeless, as that is a given. Then for backstory, I will pepper in the fact that I am gay. Which I know it's tough for gay youths on the street, but that's not like a reason for money. You can't be like, hey, would you help me out? I'm very gay. I'd like a few dollars. I always love how he phrased it, by the way. He didn't say I'm living on the street. He said, I'm new in town. Like it was intriguing. Like he wanted me to set him up with somebody. Like I have a friend who's like, there's no single guys left in Manhattan. And I'm like, I know someone who's new in town. What are 3 other things about him? Just too anxious for a lot of things. I get very nervous all the time. Not even about major life things. Just about in everyday situations. This is my regular speaking voice, but if I'm in a public bathroom and someone knocks too suddenly on the stall door, I go into a whole different speaking voice, which is, hey, someone's in here! Someone's in here! So they're gonna be like, I think there's a carnival barker in there. I think someone's trying to drum up business for a carnival.